She was rejected on a blind date. So I walked over and asked, "Can I sit here?" "My name is Owen Bray. I'm 34 years old, and I own a small carpentry workshop on the outskirts of Ashford, Vermont. I build custom furniture, dining tables, bookshelves, bed frames, the kind of things people want to keep for a lifetime. It's quiet work. Mostly just me, the smell of sawdust, and the sound of the radio. I got used to that quiet 2 years ago when my wife Nora died. Ovarian cancer. 14 months from diagnosis to the morning, I sat in a hospital chair and watched her stop breathing. She was 31. After the funeral, I went back to the workshop because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. I built things. I told myself this was fine, that a man could live inside his work and not need much else. That Friday night, I drove into town because the workshop felt smaller than usual. Maple Street Roastery was the kind of place Nora would have loved. Exposed brick walls, mismatched chairs, the smell of dark roast coffee hanging in the air like something permanent. I ordered a black coffee, took a table near the window, and planned to stay for an hour. That was when I saw her come in. She was maybe 30, dark hair pinned back loosely, wearing a coat that had been carefully pressed. She held the hand of a little girl, 5, maybe 6, in a yellow raincoat with a duck on the pocket. The girl looked around the coffee shop like string lights, and pastry cases were magic. The woman moved differently. She walked like someone who had already braced herself to be a disappointment. In the corner booth, a man was waiting. Sport coat, easy confidence, the kind of posture that said he had never been truly inconvenienced. When the woman and the little girl reached his table, his smile went flat before she had even finished sitting down. "Marcus, hi. I'm so sorry. My sitter canceled an hour ago. This is my daughter, Wren." The little girl looked up at him. "Hi," she said politely. Marcus did not say hi back. He looked at the child the way people look at unexpected weather. You should have mentioned this was part of the deal. The woman Claire, I would learn later, kept her voice steady, but I could see her hands on the table. I tried to find someone. We could still just have coffee, if that's... "I don't think this is going to work." He picked up his jacket. "I'm not really looking to take on someone else's situation." Wren tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mommy, what's a situation?" Marcus stood up, dropped a few bills on the table, and walked out without looking at either of them again. For a moment, the whole corner of the coffee shop was very still. Claire sat in the chair like the effort of holding herself upright had become too much. She put her arm around Wren and pressed her lips to the top of her daughter's head. Wren patted her mother's arm with one small hand. She didn't fully understand what had happened. She only knew her mother needed the kind of comfort a 6-year-old could give. I sat across the room with my coffee going cold. I thought about Nora. She had this way of noticing when someone needed something and simply moving toward them. She called it the only social skill worth having. I stood up. I crossed the room slowly and stopped a few feet from their table. Claire looked up, eyes red at the edges, bracing for one more thing to go wrong. "I'm sorry to interrupt," I said. I wasn't trying to listen, but that man was unkind, and I just wanted to say that. I crouched down to Wren's level. "I like your raincoat. That duck is excellent." Wren looked at her pocket, then at me. "His name is Gerald." "Gerald," I repeated seriously. "That's a very good name for a duck." She considered this. "Do you have a duck?" "I don't. I've been thinking about getting one, but I'm not sure my workshop is the right environment." "What's a workshop?" "It's where I build things out of wood." I looked at Claire. I was sitting by myself over there, and honestly, eating alone gets pretty lonely. "If you two wouldn't mind the company, no pressure, and I'll leave the second you want me to. I'd be glad to sit with you." Claire looked at me for a long moment, turning the offer over for the catch. Then Wren slid off the booth seat, walked to my vacated table, and pulled out a chair. "You can sit here," she announced. "This is the chair for you." Claire let out a small, exhausted laugh, the kind that has tears underneath it. "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay." The woman behind the counter appeared without being asked. Hot chocolate for Wren, chamomile tea for Claire, a fresh coffee for me. "On the house," she said, and went back to work. Wren did most of the talking. She told me about Gerald, about her preschool teacher, Miss Addie, about the class hamster named Biscuit, and about how she was learning cursive even though none of her letters connected properly yet. Claire watched me with her daughter for a while before she started to relax. By the time our cups were half empty, she was talking too. She worked as a dental hygienist. Wren's father had left when Wren was 18 months old, packed a bag one morning while Claire was at work, and never came back. No warning, just gone. He left behind the rent, the bills, and a little girl who still asked sometimes why Daddy's shoes weren't by the door. I told her about Nora. Not everything, but enough. That my wife had made every room feel brighter just by walking into it. That she died suddenly, and I had spent 2 years learning how to exist in rooms that used to have 2 people in them. Claire listened without offering platitudes. When I finished, she said simply, "I'm sorry. That's a very specific kind of hard." "Yes," I said. "It is." She nodded. "So is this one." We didn't say anything else for a while. Wren had fallen asleep against her mother's arm, one hand still curled around a sugar packet. Outside, rain had started down on Maple Street, blurring the lights in the window. When the coffee shop was closing, I carried Wren to Claire's car and buckled her gently into the car seat. I had spent years lifting lumber and concrete, but that small act, the careful click of a buckle around a sleeping child, made something in my chest go soft in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. Before Claire got in, I tore the corner off a paper bag and wrote my number on it. If you ever want coffee again, just coffee. No Marcus, no pressure. She took it. Looked at it. "Gerald approved of you," she said. "That counts for something." "It counts for a lot," I said seriously. She smiled a real one, tired and real, and drove away. The weeks that followed were slow and careful. Texts at first. Then coffee on mornings Wren was at preschool. Then Saturday afternoons at the park where Wren demanded I push her on the swings until I was genuinely concerned about physics. A month in, I fixed a drawer in Claire's kitchen that had stopped closing. Wren supervised from the counter, eating crackers. "You're doing it wrong," she said. "No offense." "None taken," I said. "How would you do it?" She thought carefully. "With a hammer." Claire leaned in the doorway watching us and didn't say anything, but her expression said everything. The harder part came in January. Claire went quiet in the way people go quiet when they are protecting themselves. Texts came slower. Plans were canceled. I recognized it, the pullback of someone who has been let down enough times that closeness starts to feel like standing at the edge of something high. I drove to her apartment on a Thursday night and knocked. We sat at her kitchen table. Wren's drawings covered the wall behind her. Claire held her mug in both hands and finally said, "I don't know how to do this." "Do what?" "Trust that it's going to stay." I leaned forward. "I'm not asking you not to be scared. I'm asking you to let me sit with you in it. The same way you let me sit down in the coffee shop." Her eyes went wet. "I know what loss feels like," I said. "I know what it costs to let someone matter." "I'm asking you anyway, Claire, because you and Wren are the first thing in 2 years that's made the workshop feel too small to go home to." She put her face in her hands. I sat across from her and waited. After a moment, she looked up. "I cry too much," she said. Nora used to say crying was just the body being honest. She smiled, teary and tired. She sounds like she was wonderful. She was. And she would have loved Wren. Claire reached across the table and rested her hand on mine. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. In June, Wren asked over dinner if I was going to live at their apartment. She asked it the way children ask things directly, without knowing the question had weight. I looked at Claire. Claire looked at her fork. "Would you want that?" I asked Wren. She considered it seriously. "You could bring Gerald a shelf," she said, "and fix the thing in the bathroom that makes the noise. The faucet, that one. I said I'd like that, if it was okay with her mom." Wren turned to Claire. "Mommy, is it okay?" Claire looked up, eyes bright. "Yeah, baby," she said softly. "I think it's okay." That night, after Wren was asleep, we stood on the small balcony looking out at the street. The summer air smelled like warm pavement. Claire leaned her head against my shoulder. "Owen," she said, Yeah. The night at the coffee shop. What made you get up? I thought about it. My wife. She was always the one who moved toward people. That night I heard her voice. She said, "What are you waiting for?" Claire turned her face up to look at me. "I'm glad you listened," she said. I kissed her then, for the first time, on that small balcony, with Ren asleep inside and Gerald watching from the kitchen counter. It wasn't anything like the first time I had loved someone. It was quieter, more deliberate the way a joint fits together when it has been measured twice and cut with care. Built slowly. Over coffee and sawdust, and a little girl in a yellow raincoat who pointed to a chair and said, "You can sit here." That is where our life together started. With a chair, and an invitation, and the smallest possible decision to stop being alone,